Edgar Cayce spoke of beings who accompany the soul at the moment of transition. Guides between worlds, helpers, mentors, guardians. Who are they? Why do they come specifically for you? And what happens if you refuse to go? In this episode, you will approach the mystery that awaits each of us. But few are ready to meet it consciously. At the moment of death, a person separates from the body, but does not remain alone. Almost everyone who has returned from clinical death has described a strange feeling, as if someone was waiting for them. Someone knew that at this very second they would find themselves on the other side. These beings have no names, their faces are blurred, but their presence brings peace, acceptance, and understanding. Cayce claimed that they do not appear by chance. Every soul has those who accompany it from birth to its last breath. Sometimes these are loved ones, sometimes figures of light. They do not command or frighten. They offer to move forward. And it is at this moment that the soul makes a choice: to stay, to leave, or to return. In this episode, we will reveal one of the most intimate mysteries that every soul encounters who meets us after death. Edgar Cayce claimed that the transition between worlds is not a chaotic disappearance, but a carefully prepared journey. The soul is not released into the unknown. It is met. Beings who have been with the person their entire life, but remained invisible, participate in this. Sometimes these are loved ones who have already left the physical world. Sometimes spiritual mentors whom the person may not have even known in life, but with whom they are karmically connected. Cayce said that these guides help the soul cope with the initial shock of separation from the body, direct it toward the light, explain what is happening, and gently lead it through the transition. We will discuss who exactly people see at the moment of death, why these images vary, and what it means when a soul refuses to move forward. You will learn how Cayce described these encounters, what they signify, and what role they play in the soul's destiny. This will be a journey to the edge that each of us will cross sooner or later. To understand what Edgar Cayce spoke of, one must accept an important principle. The soul is not just energy or abstract consciousness, but a living, intelligent part of a person that is never alone. Throughout life, beings who cannot be seen with physical eyes but play a key role in its journey accompany it. Cayce called them guides, guardians, mentors. He claimed that every person has at least one such companion, accompanying them from birth to their last breath. These beings do not interfere directly, but observe, guide, and send signs. And when the moment of transition comes, they step out of the shadows. Then the soul, having just left the body, senses their presence, familiar, dear, filled with peace. Cayce also said that sometimes the guides are the souls of loved ones who departed earlier and who are connected to us by bonds of love, kinship, or shared karma. In other cases, they are higher entities from spiritual realms with whom the soul made an agreement even before incarnation. They do not command, they invite. And only the soul itself determines whether it is ready to follow them into the light. When the soul leaves the body, the first thing it feels is an incredible lightness. The body no longer weighs it down. There is no pain, no heaviness, no time. But along with this comes a sense of the unknown. Something new, almost forgotten, yet strangely familiar. And it is at this moment that they appear. Not loudly, not suddenly, just emerge nearby. Their presence does not frighten, but, on the contrary, brings peace. At first, it might be the sensation of someone's gaze, then the outline of a figure, and then you realize who it is. Someone dear. Someone you have not seen in a long time, but remember with all your heart. Or, conversely, a figure without a name or face, yet filled with light, love, and understanding. Edgar Cayce described this moment as pivotal in the afterlife experience. He said the guides come not just to greet, but to prevent the soul from becoming disoriented. Because the first reaction to separation from the body is often confusion, and sometimes fear. This is precisely why they come. So the soul remembers that this is not the end, but a beginning. The beginning of a great transition. According to Edgar Cayce, soul guides do not appear randomly. They are connected to us by deep threads that extend beyond a single lifetime. Sometimes these are those we knew in life: parents, grandparents, friends, children. Sometimes they are souls we encountered in other incarnations, but do not remember in our earthly shell. Occasionally, they are entities who were never born on Earth, but are connected to our spiritual evolution. They have no form in the usual sense, but can take on an appearance that will be understandable and safe for us. Cayce claimed that the guides know exactly when the moment of transition will occur. For them, it is not a surprise, but a pre-planned act. They come softly, without pressure. They do not lead, they offer. They can explain to the soul what has happened, where it is, and help it remember who it truly is. And if the soul is confused, if it still clings to the body, to attachments, to fear, it is the guides who help it let go. Because only by freeing itself can the soul move forward. Many people who have experienced clinical death describe the same images: a tunnel, light, a sense of peace, and figures waiting for them on the other side. Remarkably, these descriptions match across people of different faiths, cultures, and ages. Some saw their mother or father, others, an elder in robes, others, an angelic being of light. Edgar Cayce explained this simply. The soul, having just left the body, is vulnerable and open. To help it not be afraid, the guides take on precisely the appearance that will inspire trust. For one, it might be a beloved grandmother. For another, a spiritual mentor or the image of a saint. Cayce himself, during his trances, saw figures of light who had no bodies, but were so filled with benevolent power that all fear vanished in their presence. He claimed that these entities not only meet the soul, but also help it reflect on its lived life. They accompany it to a place where the soul can look at its earthly existence without blame, but with complete clarity. And this is the first step toward true awakening. After meeting the guides, the soul finds itself in a special space that Edgar Cayce called the sphere of awareness. This is not a physical place, but a state in which the soul begins to remember. To remember who it is, why it came into the world, what it did, what it left unfinished, and what traces it left behind. The guides do not judge or interfere. They simply remain present, creating an atmosphere of peace and truth. According to Cayce, it is near these entities that the soul first senses that everything that seemed important on earth, fears, arguments, quarrels, anxieties, fades away. Only experiences, emotions, and decisions remain. The soul sees how each of its actions affected others, how pain and love spread further, like waves. And at this moment, it becomes clear. There are no separate lives. Everything is connected. The guides help navigate this process, like mentors, like elders who do not instruct but share silence. Because truth comes not in words, but in silent understanding. Cayce claimed that this is one of the most profound moments the soul experiences, and beside it are those who always knew it would find its way back. Sometimes, even after meeting the guides, the soul is not ready to move forward. Edgar Cayce said, "This happens when a person is too attached to the earthly world, to people, possessions, unfinished business, or the body itself. In such cases, the soul may linger in the so-called lower layers, not as punishment, but as a consequence of inner resistance. The guides cannot force it to move. They can only wait, and they know how to wait for a long time. During this period, the soul may feel emptiness, loneliness, or even a shadow of pain, not from physical suffering, but from losing connection with what it was accustomed to. But the guides remain nearby, never leaving." Cayce claimed that such entities possess infinite patience and compassion. Their task is not to compel, but to help remember that everything happening is the path home. When the soul finally releases fear, regret, or anger, it begins to see the light again. And then the guides extend their hand. Not a physical one, an energetic, meaningful one. They do not lead us away. They remind us that the path is always open, and that returning to oneself begins with trust. There are souls who immediately and trustingly follow the guides, and there are those who cannot believe what is happening. Edgar Cayce called this the state of unconscious death. Such souls sense that something has changed, but refuse to acknowledge that life in the body has ended. They may see the surrounding world, sense the living, hear the thoughts of their loved ones, but cannot interact. At such moments, the guides become especially important. They not only accompany, but also help accept the fact of transition. Cayce said that in these cases, the guides often appear in familiar forms to inspire trust and awaken memory. Sometimes several attempts are needed before the soul agrees to leave. But pressure is never applied. Everything happens through gentle, quiet presence. Because in the world of the soul, everything rests on consent. The guides do not violate free will. They are simply there. Even if a person was far from spirituality, even if in life they believed in nothing, they are still met. Because the meeting after death does not depend on faith. It depends on the very fact of the soul's birth, and thus on who you always were beyond the body. According to Edgar Cayce, the guides are not just observers, but participants in a profound process that continues even after the first meeting. They accompany the soul to special spaces where it can recover from earthly experiences. Cayce described these places as zones of rest, not heaven or hell, but rather energetic states where the soul rests, reflects on its lived life, and prepares for the next stage. In such spheres there are no bodies, no sounds in the usual sense, but there is silence filled with meaning. There, the soul can be alone, if needed, or surrounded by other entities at the same level of awareness. The guides do not disappear. They are always nearby. Sometimes silently, sometimes guiding with attention. Their goal is not to lead by the hand, but to provide an opportunity to remember. Cayce said that it is in this state, in these intervals between worlds, that the soul can for the first time truly understand why it was born, what it learned, and what remained unfinished. The guides do not give answers. They create a space where answers reveal themselves, and in this quietest presence, the soul begins its movement toward a new cycle. Sometimes the guides stay with the soul longer than usual. This happens when the soul is preparing for its next incarnation. Edgar Cayce claimed that it is they who help the soul see the map of its future life, not in details but in feelings, tasks, and knots that must be untied. In such spaces, he said, the soul does not simply wait. It participates in the choice of body, environment, conditions, time period. And all this is done not alone. The guides become participants in a council where past actions are analyzed, new scenarios are chosen, and it is discussed which souls will meet in the new incarnation. Everything that will happen in the next life follows the principle of balance and growth. Not punishment, but learning. Cayce said this stage is not always easy. The soul may experience anxiety, doubt, fear. But it is the guides who help it maintain inner integrity. They remind everything that will be has already been chosen in agreement with the higher self, and the soul agrees because it feels ready. And when the moment comes, they are there again, at the start, at the moment of birth. They send it into life, just as once they met it in death. Sometimes souls return with a message. People who have experienced clinical death tell of encounters with guides who asked them to return because their time had not yet come. These figures of light did not persuade or command. They simply looked, and this gaze contained more meaning than any words. Edgar Cayce described such cases as special missions, where the soul is granted temporary access to another world, but must bring back something important. Sometimes it is new understanding, sometimes a change of fate. The guides in such situations become turning points. Their presence remains in memory for a lifetime. The person can no longer live as before. They feel they have seen something unforgettable. Cayce believed that those who have experienced such a meeting become bearers of light. Even if they do not remember all the details, something burns within them that does not go out. The guides are not always needed to escort beyond the threshold. Sometimes they come to remind, you have not yet completed your path. You are needed here, for now. And when the time comes, they will be waiting again, always. Edgar Cayce claimed that the soul is never truly alone, even in silence, even in emptiness, even in the darkest layers of existence. The guides always remain with it. They are like the invisible breath of eternity, like a thread connecting us to the source. For some, they are an image of comfort. For others, a reminder of home, of where we came from. But in their presence, there is always something more than mere care. It is wisdom accumulated beyond time. It is memory that does not forget us, even when we have forgotten ourselves. Cayce said that it is with the help of these entities that the soul passes through all cycles of existence, from birth to life, from life to death, from death to return. They do not demand worship or expect gratitude. They are part of a grand plan in which every soul has its place. And when the final moment comes, when everything earthly dissolves, they are the first to extend their hand. Not to take away, but to remind that we do not lose ourselves. We return to them, to ourselves, to the light. When the soul leaves the body, everything familiar disappears. There is no gender, name, age, or role. Only essence remains. And in this pure state, the first thing that meets us is not emptiness, but someone's presence. Silent, warm, recognizable. Edgar Cayce called this a return to the light through those who were always nearby but remained beyond perception. This is the true mystery. You were never alone. Even in the darkest moments of life, even in the deepest pain, they stood beside you, the guides. And when death comes, they step out of the shadows. Not to judge, but to remind that love is not an emotion, but a force not bound by body or time. Those who meet us at the threshold are not judges, but witnesses. Witnesses of who you have become, who you were, and who you can yet be. And perhaps this is the greatest revelation. Death is not loneliness. It is a meeting. The first, the true, and the long-awaited. With those who know you better than you know yourself. Death frightens those who think there is nothing beyond it. But as Edgar Cayce's revelations and thousands of accounts worldwide show, beyond the threshold lies not emptiness. There is a meeting. The soul is not cast into the unknown. It is met by those who have always accompanied it. Mentors, guardians, loved ones who departed earlier. They do not ask what you believed in. They come because it is their role to be there at the most crucial second of your existence. And in this lies profound comfort. Perhaps you have never seen them, perhaps never felt them, but they exist and will be waiting. The only question is, will you recognize them when the moment comes? If this episode has made you think, like, and subscribe, write in the comments, do you believe someone will be waiting for you on the other side? Or perhaps you've had an experience where you sensed their presence already now? Share your story, because what awaits us after all is not the end. It is a meeting, and it is worth preparing for it with an open heart.